Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. All praise and thanks are due to Allah. We send peace and blessings upon the beloved messenger and his family and companions. May Allah be pleased with all of them. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we'll be talking about Istiqamah in professional life. We'll begin with a verse from Surah Aal-Imran where Allah SWT says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. فآتاهم الله ثواب الدنيا وحسن ثواب الآخرة والله يحب المحسنين. So Allah gave them the reward of this world and the good reward in the hereafter. And Allah loves the doers of good. Research is showing that in Canada there's a change in the population with the distribution of Muslims being so many in the second generation, almost 30% of the total Muslim population. Many of them are in the workforce. The verse here refers to the good in this life, and some of these things, the worldly things, that are things that we earn. And earning in this life is not a bad thing. So what we're going to talk about are different aspects of how we should have a good professional life or a working life, but also balance that with the best life in the hereafter. The first and most important principle is that work has merit. It is something that is appreciated in Islam. Earning money from our own hands and not being reliant on others is a strong merit in Islam. If we have the skills and we can do good, we should promote ourselves even to the degree like the Prophet Yusuf ﷺ did when he said, and he told people that I am Hafidhun Alim. I am a good guard, a protector who is Alim, knows the value of things. And not only that, but we should encourage other people who have good values to be useful in society. The example of Prophet Musa in the Quran as well, as he was noticed to be qawiyun amin, someone who was powerful, competent, but also trustworthy, which means that we can look for qualities and make recommendations as well for people to do good work and good jobs. And different jobs need different skills. Everyone has a role, everyone has different strengths and abilities. So we should also look at other people with respect for whatever contribution that they might have in the workforce or in the society. In a hadith, it is narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah has mercy upon one who is easygoing in business when he buys and sells. And this idea of not being so strict, meaning like giving a rounding of numbers up or down, or being lenient when it comes to loans, or people working late or leaving early, for example. So our work deals as well, you know, most deals are contractual, and they actually should be. This is very important in Islam, keeping records, because this avoids complications and disputes and misunderstandings. So having contracts and things written down when we work and have agreements in business or trade is very, very important. And it's also very important that if we have a contract, that we stick to the contract and that we fulfill our obligations as a Muslim. Of course, another very important point is that our focus should be on halal or legal means of earning an income. It is narrated in a hadith that the flesh that grows on unlawful provision will be worthy of the hellfire, meaning that as we consume things and our flesh grows, that flesh would be worthy of the hellfire. So there's obviously things that we would avoid, like the haram industries, like alcohol and gambling. But there are other subtle ways that our income can be less permissible. That is, like if you're paid for every minute that you're at work, and that's part of your contract, and you're using that time to do other things like surf the internet or to book your next trip or whatever things you're doing for your personal life, that's not part of that time that you're being paid for, then that time is being paid for unjustly, and this income could be considered haram. So be very careful about how we use our time and fulfill our contractual obligations. When we earn, this is a responsibility. And so the responsibility we have at work as well is that there's a trust not to take things that belong to the company and use them for personal use, or to take them home as well, because this is violating a trust of the contract that we have. The reality is that we spend a lot of time at work, probably you could argue even more time than we spend with our families. So it's important that if we have the choice to pick, that we find a place to work that's good. And if we are able to, if we're able to be the employer as well, that we pick good people to work with as well, that we hire people that are trustworthy, that will keep our standards and morals and high value in our workplace. So another very important aspect, these employees, if you're an employer, the employees must be paid on time. This is very important. This is based on a hadith that a person should be paid even before the sweat dries off of their skin. So this is so important that you can imagine that there was one prophet, Shuaib, والسلام, who was specifically sent to his people for the purpose of reminding them of Allah, of course, but also his main message that's mentioned in the Quran was that he was to tell his people to be fair in their business interaction. This is amazing, actually, that this was such a priority that a prophet had to be sent to a people for them to correct this in their ways. So the Prophet, our Prophet Muhammad was given clear guidelines as it relates to work and businesses. And this points again to the fact that this is important to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is a part of istiqamah. Things like we can't allow cheating or stealing to be a part of our business world, because this leads to a mistrust in society, and it can make things much worse and worse. Even concepts like inflation and total chaos and collapse in economies can happen when there's cheating and lack of trust in the economy. And unfortunately, this happens in many places around the world. So Muslims at one point in time as well led in many fields in the sciences, because studying it at the time, studying the natural world, and even to this day, studying the natural world brings you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as you discover the infinite depths of the knowledge and the signs within the creation. So Muslims are also not just leaders in science, but leaders in administration. Great examples of our early history was how the zakah collection was collected, how taxes were distributed, and all of this work took place. This was a kind of a type of worldly endeavor, but it was important for good work to be applied, the good principles of work to be applied. And work itself can actually be a worship if it's done in a good way to support the family, to support the community, and it should not take away, of course, from any religious obligation that we have getting close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a challenge, actually, because sometimes when we work in the West, some of our ideals as Muslims may be challenged. But we must be flexible and with our limits. At the same time, we can't transgress the bounds that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set, but we must learn to work within a system that relies sometimes on interest and with people who may or may not hold our ethical principles, but we can't give up on them either. The workplace as well can be a great place for giving da'wah, for calling people towards the truth of Islam, both actively as well as passively, with upholding our good manners and our good character that Islam teaches. We have to obviously identify and be upright as Muslims in the workplace as much as we can. As we see many of the third and fourth generation of Muslims heavily integrated in many segments of the workplace and established in companies, we see our own Canadian society evolving and accommodating things like prayer spaces and respecting religious beliefs to some degree, and also in some places having halal food being available. So this is something that as we are established in the workplace and can become leaders in the workplace, we should push for better wages, safer and more stable workplaces, environmental stewardship, and other opportunities, because this is our obligation as Muslims wherever we are. Sometimes we can even learn things from the workplace, like best practices that we can bring back to our local community efforts, including charitable work in the mosques or relief organizations, even in asset management with Sharia compliant solutions, principles that we can learn and apply in halal entertainment, or even in lobbying groups and other management arenas. So we should have and should be striving in our workplace. It's a place of ambition and of goals. But at the same time, we can't let our goals distract us from the responsibilities to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can't be so engrossed in our work and in striving and trying to get up in the ladder that we forget about our responsibilities to Allah, which includes as well our responsibilities to our families and to our communities. So in summary, this is a lot, but work has an immense merit in Islam. But we must also be able to work in the best Islamic way, earning through permissible means and with best practices, using the skills and attributes that Allah SWT has given us and taught us through our good character, and fulfilling the obligations of contracts that we make, and seeking the responsible and clean earnings and a good work environment that allows us to fulfill this obligation and duty to Allah, because work itself can be a worship and a means of istiqamah. As we work in systems and we discover and refine our technology and our understanding of science, we can become even closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which can help us achieve not just the best in this world, but also the best in the hereafter. We should push for things like equality and fairness in business and work environments, and have high ambitions and goals. And we cannot compromise our Islamic principles and duties in any way along the way. And this is difficult, but inshallah, we'll do our best, and with Allah SWT help, we can achieve the best. Ameen. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum.